Very good morning to class 9 students. In our last video of chapter 5, The Happy Prince, we learned how the Happy Prince has helped the match girl, a playwright, and a suffering woman with a feverish son. He lost his precious ruby and the other two gemstones, other two sapphires, right? Now, still the suffering was not over of his town people, and he was left with nothing. Whatever his beautiful statue was adorned with different gemstones, he had already donated it through the messenger, the small bird, the swallow. He did the needful. Now, since the suffering of his town people, his people in the city, was not over, so he still wanted to help. So what did he do? He asked the small bird to go into the city and bring the news to him. Who else is still suffering? And in the best way he could help. So the bird went and he brought the news. The news which was brought to the Happy Prince was devastating. It was all about small children and the way they were suffering. You see, the bird came with the sad news of those children whose faces became whitened due to freezing cold and starving for food, with no assistance being provided by the ministers and the king of that town, who were actually responsible to make sure whether the people in the city were safe and not starving, not deprived of food. Right? So, what does the Happy Prince do? He offers help. He asked the small bird to take his skin off. Now, when somebody takes the skin off, you see, when we cut our skin, does it pain us or not? Yes, the answer is positive. Certainly it does. So, you think of when somebody peels off your skin, that much of pain the Happy Prince had to undergo. Right, I'm here on page number 34. Let's have a small recap of the last paragraph. What he says, "I'm covered with fine gold," said the prince. "You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to the poor." The living always think that gold can make them happy. Well, we always, think that gold is perhaps one of the most precious and one of the most expensive substance in this world, but that's not true. More precious is the living being's life, and more precious than that is his or her suffering. If you cannot help in someone else's suffering, then what is the use of you being adorned with the gold which is gilded all over the Happy Prince's body? So he offers that, could you please take it? He offers it to the little bird to take it off and go and give it to those who are needy. So at least they can make money out of it and they can help themselves. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off, till the Happy Prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played in the street. "We have bread now," they cried. That means now we have food to eat. Yes, the whitened face became rosier. They were again pink, back to normal, because they got food. They had nothing to starve with now. Right. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. You see, while it is snowing, it is cold, of course, but when the snow becomes frost is the frozen ice on the ground, which is very slippery. That gives even more freezing colder, you see, so it becomes really colder. The streets looked as if they were made of silver. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on the ice. Right, it's a good time. I mean, it's almost December or the month of January or February, where it's the peak time for the snow to fall. So children, they come with the sledges and they come in their woolies, their furry coats, and they all play in the snow. It's a quite good spectacle. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. Now he has forgotten, he has called off his plan to go to Egypt and meet up with his friends. He loved him too well. He loved him too well. This is very important for you to understand. Unless you love someone truly, that means you do sacrifice things. You don't think of taking things from them. You think of only giving and giving things up, negotiating. Right? That's how the true love is defined. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. You see, he is also starving since he is a messenger and assistant to the happy prince, and he has to do the jobs assigned by him. He also has to keep himself alive. If he is dead, who would do the job of the happy prince? Since he was installed on the tallest platform, he couldn't move. He only could see the suffering, but he couldn't do. So he assigned jobs to this little bird, and he did it well, whatever was needful. Right? So he had to keep himself alive. How did he do that? He was also starving like others. He was suffering, but he never spoke about a word also to the happy prince about his suffering. Somehow he managed to collect few crumbs of food, and he kept flapping his wings so that he kept it warm. You see? Right. But at last he knew that he was going to die. Well, how much you can get from your body? Your body will definitely answer you, starts calling upon someone's health when they are constantly sick, ill, and starving. And still they have to work. He had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder. Once more. Goodbye, dear prince, he murmured, he whispered in a slow voice. Will you let me kiss your hand? Perhaps now he knew that I'm no more going to be able to do anything for the happy prince, and I have to bid him the last goodbye. It's time. Yes, it's time to go into the heavens now. I'm glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little swallow, said the prince. You have stayed too long here, but you must kiss me on my lips, for I love you a lot. So he says, could you please give me one last goodbye kiss before you go to Egypt? You see, he still does not know that why the little birdie had come to bid him the last goodbye. He thinks still that he had to go to Egypt now that all the jobs that he had assigned are over. And he now has to go and meet up his friends. So he says, it is not to Egypt that I'm going, said the swallow. I'm going to the house of death. D is capitalized to more emphasize it, death here, the deeper meaning. That means I'm now going to sleep forever. I'm going to slip into the eternal sleep once and forever. Death is the brother of sleep, is he not? And he kissed the happy prince on his lips and fell down dead at his feet. You see, the bird died. He died of a hunger and no rest and a lot of pain and the suffering. And he could not utter a single word to the happy prince because the happy prince was suffering more than the bird. And because he felt, see, when you love someone truly, this is how you love. You sacrifice. You negotiate and you go to great length to do whatever you can for them. Excuse me. Well, at that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue. You see, now the way the bird died, the happy prince's heart broke. He was heartbroken, pain-stricken, as if something had broken inside him. The fact that the leaden heart had snapped right into two. The prince's statue was not looking more than a beggar anyway. It was torn, broken, made looking dull. But now, inside the statue, the leaden heart snapped, that means broke into two parts. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Yes, it was. Early next morning, you see, even it shows the breaking of the leaden heart of the statue, shows that the happy prince also dead. He died. He could not live any longer, seeing his best friend meeting this sad death, unexpected. So next morning, you see, whatever happened last night, the mayor was walking in the square below in the company with the town councillors. He did not know what had happened last night and what was actually happening for past few days. As they passed by the column, he looked up at the statue. "Oh dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks," he said. Shabby, that is untidy. Right. How shabby. Indeed, cried the town councillors, who always agreed with the mayor, and they went up to look at it. You see, sometimes if you remember last year, if you learned Princess September's chapter, you see all the ministers in the king's court, the Japanese king's court, they always repeated whatever the king said, because their job was to say yes boss or say yes king. They usually agree. You see, they don't have strength to correct the king because for him being a king. Similarly, the councillors here did not have the courage, perhaps strength, and also that sense of correcting someone was absent in them, because they could not speak a word before the mayor for him, for he was a mayor of the city. So whatever the mayor said, they naturally had to agree to what he said. So the councillors did not correct the king that, oh yes, something really bad had happened with the statue, we should look into the cause of it. Instead they said, oh yes, this statue does not look good. That means they emphasized more onto the outward beauty of the statue, wherein they failed to look into the innate beauty, you see, the inner beauty. The inner beauty of what? Sacrifice, the beauty of, showing compassion to others, the capability of empathizing with people, all such the mayor has failed to look into, and so has his foolish councillors who believed in utter absolute servility to him. The ruby has fallen out. You see, now they justify why does it look really shabby. For the ruby has fallen out of his sword, his eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer, said the mayor. In fact, he is little better than a beggar. That means he has lost his outward beauty, so-called beauty. Little better than beggars, said the town councillors. You see, they repeated the same thing, what the mayor has said. And here is actually a dead bird at his feet, continued the mayor. We must really issue a proclamation that birds are not to be allowed to die here. You can see it in this picture, the happy prince's statue and the unfortunate bird that lies dead motionless at his feet, and the mayor standing on one side and on the other his councillors. And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion. Okay, you see, proclamation here is the announcement. You see, a public notice is issued. This is another foolish remark made by the mayor, and his act is without a thought. Such a mindless act. You see, he did not try to look at the bird, what had happened with it, and what happened with the statue. He should have had his investigation made, but he did not. Because to them, beauty was the thing, you see, how beautiful the statue looked. That was more important rather than the beautiful work which was done both by the bird and the happy prince. What did they do? So they pull down the statue of the happy prince, as he is no longer beautiful, he is no longer useful. You see, something which does not look beautiful, it is not useful then. This is the thinking, the attitude of mayor. Said the art professor at the university. Even the professor at the university thought the same and acted the same. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. What a strange thing, said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. Overseer is the supervisor and the foundry is the workshop, right? So wherever the statue was being melted down, there was something strange thing happening which was witnessed by the supervisor at the workshop. This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away. You see, somehow the statue was supposed to be damaged, and so is the leaden heart. But the heart that was full of love for someone else, compassion for someone else, a lot of care, a lot of thinking for others, could not even be burnt down. So what did they do? This foolish mayor and his ministers, his counselors ordered to throw it away in the heap of garbage. It has to be destroyed somehow. So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. Finally, the two arrived in the heavens. Bring me the two most precious things in the city, said Almighty God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. See, the Almighty God ordered his angels, go and get me the most two precious things from the earth. They don't have to look beautiful. Yes, their karma had to be beautiful, not sinful. You have rightly chosen, said Almighty God. For in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing forever, more and more, and in my city of gold the happy prince shall praise me, and I shall be praising him forever and ever. See what we do here, it is recorded. So it is a better thing that if you cannot cause something good to others, at least do not cause suffering and pain to someone else. Because that is not going to be considered, that is not going to be counted for Almighty, the Supreme. You see, He does not forgive those. What have we learned in the legend of Northland? Those who are unable to share, though they can afford, they are not welcomed in the garden of paradise, the heavenly garden of paradise from Almighty. They are punished, and so as the mayors and the councillors, his ministers, they are all going to be punished in due times. But who's going to be welcomed? Those who are muted, and they remain muted and still keep on giving things to others, no matter they don't look beautiful, regardless of their beauty, the gender, anything. They are the precious, in fact, the most precious things that are welcomed by Almighty God. There are a couple of things that come out for us to learn. That appearance does not imply what man feels inside. Appearance of one is always deceptive. Somebody who looks really more civilized may not be civilized. Somebody who does not look so presentable must have been more presentable, more civilized. You see. Also, we learnt the values of true love and suffering. You see, true love and suffering, they go hand in hand. True love does not define always taking things from the one that you really love truly. It actually defines from how much you can give from your side. And this is how it is defined. Sadly, yes. One may not like it, but this is what, and this is how it has to be defined. Right. Along with this, selfishness of authority and the values of sacrifice, compassion for others, generosity of heart. Who is the most generous character here? The happy prince, the one who lost his eyes, he lost his skin. Perhaps if he had something else also, he must have been ready to lose it because he wanted to help someone. You see, and a lot of struggling. The birds are struggling and finally meeting the sad death just to cause something good to others. That small act really gives you the place in the paradise up above. And that is considered not how you look and how you look presentable or not. You see, so these are the all morals that that are conveyed, the lessons for us to learn. And these are the life lessons, children. One must try to implement it at any extent that they can. Right. So we have already discussed the question answers during the live sessions, and you are also done in your CW along with the VBQ. So I'm not going to discuss it here in this video. I want you to keep learning. Think about this. This is a beautiful chapter. It speaks of the value of giving and the pleasure of giving, not only the value that you should have, but the way the small bird felt the warmth in this freezing cold when he realized the act of giving, the act of caring and sharing. You feel when you give something to someone, you feel so good inside. Oh yes, that you gave something away, something which was too dear to you, you gave it away. It gives you a pleasure, right? So you all can have a feel of it when you all grow up. Try to inculcate it in your life, in your nature, in your personality, right? Okay, we talk about it further during the live session. Till then, you keep learning the chapter, and you have any doubts, you can always interact with me, right? Thank you very much for learning and being with us.